Welcome to my COVID-19 quick survival guide for business owners. So today I am going to talk just briefly, hopefully, about what you need to do now to ensure that your business is prepared for the fallout and the repercussions and the consequences of this COVID-19 thing that is going on right now. Keeping in mind that some of us have not yet seen the effects of COVID-19 on our business yet. And there are still a number of us that are unaware of what this pandemic is going to do to our business. How is it going to affect our business? And if you think you're not going to be affected by it, I'm hoping that by listening or watching this video, by the end you realize that chances are you are going to be affected in one way or another by what's going on in our economy right now. And the most important thing I just kind of want to start out by saying is I don't want anyone here to think that their business is immune to what's happening in our society right now, or that things are just going to work out, right? Things will just work themselves out. Neither of those is a good mindset to take in this current environment, and just thinking that things will play out and whatever will happen is not. You guys, hope is not a strategy. All right, you can't hope that you'll make it through this. I want you to sit down and look at your business and break it down like we're going to through this training, and make sure your business is going to make it through this. If after this video you take all the steps and you determine that you're good, that no matter how bad things might get with this pandemic, your business is still good, great. But now you have that peace of mind, right? You have that peace of mind knowing that your business is going to be okay. For a lot of people, this process is going to be a wake-up call. We are going to realize that we aren't as shielded from what's going on in society as we might have thought we were. So a few things before I get started. So first, I want to reiterate that I said plan, not panic. All right, I am a planner. I am not going into crazy, like the world is ending mode, okay? But I am, our business is taking precautions to help, alleviate our outside contact, if you will, and we're just being prepared. We're making ourselves prepared for what may or may not come next. So plan, not panic. All right, and again, I see so many people who are avoiding doing any kind of planning whatsoever because doing so means they agree with the quarantine, even though they think it's a hoax or a sham, or that if they take time to plan, that they're throwing in the towel. They're saying that this virus is going to ruin my business, and I don't want that to happen. I've seen so many things on my social media feed, basically reasons why different business owners aren't preparing. All right, none of these mindsets should hold true. All right, just because you're planning and becoming prepared doesn't say anything about what you think about the quarantine going on, nor does it say that you think this is going to wreak havoc on your business. What planning does is allows you to look at the big picture, look at your business, figure out, what could happen through this pandemic and how it could affect your business and how you're going to make it through to the other side. All right, and you guys, whether it's COVID-19 or an economic recession, the swine flu, terrorism, threats, whatever it is, our economy sees these types of threats every 2 to 5 years. So planning for this or any type of disaster is a function of a smart business owner. All right, so do your due diligence as a business owner and put this disaster plan into place. All right, so stop avoiding this. I know it's scary, I know it's tough, but you're going to feel so much better having a plan on how to get to the other side of this. All right, so let's go. So today we're talking all about figuring out your finances. All right, so in order to know how your business is going to survive, get to the other side of this, which right now we anticipate, anywhere from a month to 3 months, right, of this economic craziness going on. And so we need to figure out our business finances to figure out how we get from here to there. How do we survive to the end of this event with our business still intact? All right, so first we're going to look at the cash out, all of the cash going out of our business. Okay, and the first thing we're going to look at is our cost of goods sold, right? The cost we pay for the supplies and materials to make the product we produce. And right here, it is so key that you make sure you are cutting back on supply and material orders to only what you know you're going to sell. All right, so you're going to look at actual orders that have been completed, and just you're going to keep, basically you want to keep minimum inventory. Okay, you do not want to lock up your cash right now into inventory. Okay, you've heard cash is king. Well, here cash is queen, thanks to my mentor Rachel Hollis. We like, when we're women-based owners, we say cash is queen. But don't lock your cash up into inventory, okay? Because if your sales, this is what I want you to think about. If your sales slow or even stop, okay, you want to have cash, not excess inventory. All right, so limit and minimize your orders on cost of on your supplies and materials. All right, number two, the second thing we're going to look at when we're analyzing our cash out are all of our other expenses. Right, everything that doesn't have to do with our cost of goods sold, everything else. All right, our software costs, our payroll costs, our rent, our office supplies, all of those things. Okay, you are going to review all of your recurring expenses and cut what you can. All right, I did this weekend, and what I did is I exported my last 3 months of bank and credit card statements to an Excel file, and then I just went down to the list. I went to town, okay? I went down the list and looked at everything, every line item. The reason I did 3 months is, although we assume, we look at everything that's recurring month by month, there are expenses in there that recur every quarter, right? So I figured by looking at my last 3 months, I would catch everything. All right, and I went through and I highlighted everything that I am not using in my business right now, regardless of price. Because if you're anything like me, the last time you did this when we weren't in, a pandemic, I went through and I found so many line items, you guys, but I was like, it's only $5 a month, or I don't want to get rid of that because I'm grandfathered in at this great price, even though I'm not using it and haven't for a year. Okay, don't get sucked into that trap. If you do not use it and it's not in your plan to use in the next month, get rid of it. You can always re-sign up later. Get rid of it. If you don't need it, get rid of it. I found a software subscription, you guys, from our firm that we stopped using like 6 months ago, but that I kept holding on to for that exact reason that I just said. I was like, we'll never get this price again, and we might use it sometime, so I'm just going to hold on to it. No, cut it. So an alternative to completely cutting expenses is to pause. Pause anything you aren't using right now, but might need in the foreseeable future. Okay, there are still things that you need to cut. If you haven't used that stuff in 6 months and you don't anticipate using it in the next 3 months, get rid of it. But if there's something you do plan on using again, maybe in the next 3 to 3-ish months, you can reach out to the vendor and request a pause or a suspension on your account. So I actually did this on my course creation subscription because I'm not course creating right now. This is probably something I should have done when I stopped course creation, or paused my course creation process like 3 months ago, but I didn't think about it. And so now I reached out to them. It was super simple. They paused it for 3 months, and then in 3 months, I can resume it again, or I can pause it again if I need to. All right, so the nice thing about pausing a subscription is that it should keep all of your data intact. You're just not able to access it, update it, and use it for whatever you were using it for. So my example was Kajabi, my course creation content. So the few things I've already created and I have in there, it'll stay put. I just can't go in there and update it and use it right now. But that's fine because I'm not using it anyway. Okay, so go through and pause anything you aren't using right now. You guys, even if it's just for a month, if you are not using it this month, ask to put it on a pause. You can always reactivate it again next month. All right, but if you're able to do this, you're able to save dollars here and there. It's going to add up and it's going to help. So when you're analyzing your cash flow, I also need you to make sure that you're taking into account loan payments and owner's draw expenses as well. So these items are things that aren't on your P&L, your profit and loss, but they are cash out, which is why I like, instead of just looking at your P&L statement, which I know a lot of people do, look at, run an Excel spreadsheet or a data export or something where you can see line by line all the cash going out of your business. So here, when I say loan payments, I mean that could be credit card payments, right? It could be loan payments, it could be leases, equipment leases. So look at all of that and make sure you're accounting for it. I'm not saying those are things you have to cut, and a lot of them you probably can't, but they have to be accounted for when you're trying to figure out how much cash you need to run your business each month. And then another part of that is your owner's draws. How much money do you have to take out of the business every month to pay your personal expenses? We're all in business to make money. Most of us, we have these businesses and companies to make money. How much of that money do we need to take out of the business to pay our personal expenses? All right, make sure that money is accounted for as well. All right, now the last thing I want you guys to look at before we move on is I want you to think about what additional expenses you might be facing. All right, we're in cutback mode, but what additional expenses might you incur or might come up because of the adjustments and the changes being made in today's society? Things I've come up with, remote working costs for employees. Maybe you have to set up VPNs. Maybe you have to, maybe you're deciding to get your team laptops or some other type of machine to work from home. Think about those costs for allowing your team to work remotely. What is that going to cost you? We have, there are new paid sick leave rules in place, or maybe you have a paid sick leave policy, right? Think about if all of your employees have to take however much sick time they have per your policy, what is that going to cost you? All right, and then another thing to consider is that there might be higher material or supply costs. As your vendors and your suppliers become affected by this, your price for materials and supplies and work might go up. All right, so think about if that's going to affect your business as well. Okay, so now that we've gone through all of our expenses, we've cut what we can, we've paused what we can, we have accounted for all the cash still going out of our business, including loan payments, owner's draws, and any additional expenses we anticipate. Okay, we now have a monthly cash flow requirement. This number is the amount of money that we need to run our business for 1 month. Okay, so the next thing I want you to do before we move on to analyzing our projected income is to review your cash reserve. All right, I want you to look at your cash reserve. That's your emergency fund, it's your emergency fund. I don't know what else to call it. That's what I call it. So look at your cash reserve, what amount is in there, and compare it to your revised cash requirement that we just created, okay? How many months can your stash cover if sales completely halt? I know this is scary, and I know a lot of you are telling me, well, that's not going to happen. Sales are not going to completely stop. We're going to have something, but I need you to know how long will you survive? Will your business survive if not one more penny comes in those doors? I know that's worst case scenario and it's scary, but you have to do this, all right? And some of us are savers and we're pinchers and we're like, I have 6 months of reserve if, all else fails. That's not me. And then there's some of us, you guys out there, that we barely have enough cash to get us through the end of this month. All right, wherever you are on the spectrum, you have to be honest with yourself, figure out how much cash you have. So that was all step 1, analyzing your cash out. So step 2 is analyzing your cash in. This is your income. So I want you to create honest projections for the next 3 months of revenue. All right, and as you're doing this, I have some questions for you to ask yourself to determine how this particular economic event is going to affect your business's revenue. All right, so the first thing is, will your demand be affected? Will the demand for your product or service be affected? And the answer to this is absolutely yes, and then you have to determine by how much. If you answer yes to either of these questions, does your revenue depend on people going out? Does your revenue depend on discretionary income? If your revenue depends on either of these items, then your income is going to be affected over the next time period. We don't know how long. Because you guys, people are not going out, we're quarantining, right? And everybody is going into protect mode, they're being forced to spend less. Some people are losing jobs. Some people, their businesses are losing revenue. Okay, so they're spending less. So if your business's revenue depends on someone else's discretionary income, the demand for your business is going to go down. Okay, so examples. Does your revenue depend on people going out? So examples of that. If you're a coffee shop, people normally come in, sit down, drink coffee. They're not doing that as often, right? And I mean, everything in Colorado where I am, restaurants are closed, bars are closed, spas are closed, gyms are closed. They can't service. So if that's you, then yes, your revenue is going to be affected. The second, does your revenue depend on discretionary income? All right, because again, people are spending on the necessities right now, whether by choice or by having their hand forced. Okay, but if your revenue and your business depends on people having discretionary income, you're going to be affected in some way by this. All right, so if you are, a lot of retail stores are getting hit because people aren't going out just shopping. All right, if you have an online clothing store, same thing. A lot of people just aren't spending money on things they don't absolutely need right now. All right, so will your demand be affected? Those are the two questions I need you to answer. And then the second question is, will your ability to supply your goods or service be affected? What do I mean by this? So think about your suppliers, your vendors, your contractors, the suppliers who give you your materials and send you the supplies to make your products. The vendors or contractors that work for you, whether it's in a service industry or a product industry, right? Your employees. And then last, yourself. Okay? If any of these things is affected negatively, how does that affect your business's ability to supply your goods or services? So let me give you a little example of each of these things I've talked about. So a supplier, all right, if your main supplier stops working, goes out of business, cuts their supply, is somehow maybe their ability to get materials and supplies is cut, okay? Therefore, you're getting less materials, okay? Then your ability to supply and create the goods or the products for your clients goes down. Vendors and contractors. You might have, people that work for you in any sort of contractor way. Virtual assistants, subcontractors if you're in construction, maybe like tax. I'm a tax business, right? So maybe during busy season, you have CPAs who work for you, just contract a couple hours a week. What if those people are no longer able to work for you or supply you with the amount of hours that you usually utilize them for? What happens to your business and your ability to supply your goods and services to your customers? 3 are your employees. What if your employees get sick? That's the biggest one. What if they're no longer able to work? What if they don't want to come into the office because they're on quarantine and they want to follow the quarantine guidelines? All right, so if your employees are not able to do their job to the same capacity that they were before, how does that affect your ability to supply goods and services? I'm sorry, my nose itches. It's allergy season here. Not sick, but just itchy nose. And then the last is your ability yourself, okay? What if you get sick? What if you have to stop working to care for a sick family member? What if you can't work as much because you're now homeschooling your kids? All right. What happens when your ability to create the product or service that you normally spend X amount of hours doing gets cut down to less or nothing? Okay, how does that affect your ability to supply your goods or services to your clients? Okay, so now that we know what to look at, we know to look at how is the demand for our product or service going to be affected, how is our ability to supply our good or service going to be affected. We can create some honest projections of how we see the next 3 months of revenue looking like to us, okay? And I suggest here we have our worst case scenario, right? We created that in step 1. If there is no revenue coming in, but we still have these expenses, that's worst case scenario, right? I challenge you to create 3 other scenarios somewhere above worst case scenario that you can later look at and compare your actuals to these projections to see how you're looking in terms of the money coming in. All right, so now, okay, we know what the challenge we're faced, right? We know what expenses we still have to cover. We know the challenges that are facing us in terms of making money. Okay, now it's time to fill in those income gaps. Okay, where can you produce additional or alternative income streams? Okay, so again, I'm telling you to prepare, not to panic. Okay, and I'm going to give you a few suggestions to hopefully get your brain kind of going in the right direction. All right, so first, consider how you can help your current clients get through this crazy time. So here, what I'm saying is, what can you provide? What good or service can you provide to your current clients to help them through this? I will use myself as an example. So right now, I am serving like crazy. I'm making videos like this for my clients. I am sending out regular newsletters to give them updates on taxes, on what's going on. I am giving them tips and tricks to help them get through here. I'm serving the crud out of them. And I'm also letting them know what they need to do to navigate this financially. All right, and by doing that, okay, I stay in their sight as a necessity, okay, as someone they need in their world at this crazy time. And then later I can figure out, or now, but up to you and what your business is, you can figure out how to monetize that. Sorry, my phone's ringing. So next, I want you to get creative, you guys. You might have to change your offerings or how you serve your clients. All right, so this goes hand in hand with what I was just talking about. So what we're seeing personal trainers going online and creating online training platforms, right? We are seeing retail stores creating and strengthening their online presence. We see retail or product-based services offering free shipping. I'm seeing online coaches incorporating how to survive COVID-19 into what they're already teaching their clients. Keep in mind, okay, as people are determining what expenses are necessary and what aren't, how can you make your product or service a necessity that they cannot afford to have, that they cannot afford not to have? Let me say that again. As people are determining what expenses are necessary and which ones aren't, how can you make your product or service a necessity that they cannot afford not to have? And then you are going to get creative on how to answer that question. All right, the last piece I have here is consider how you can expand your clientele. How can you serve a new audience or demographic? The coolest example I've seen of this is I saw on social media an event center that is currently serving as a daycare center for emergency personnel. All right, so they are not only helping their community through this thing, but they are finding a way to turn some income out of it. Excuse me. So then I'm going to end with, what if you still have cash flow gaps to fill? All right, what if you cut your expenses, you've accounted for income losses, you're filling the income gap, but you still have cash flow gaps to fill? So a few suggestions here. I've got 4 in order of and these are in the order of how I think you should attack them. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is cut your personal expenses. Okay, analyze and cut your personal expenses. Doing this decreases the amount of money you have to take out as owners pay or owners draw, and it keeps more cash in the business. All right, so this essentially affects step number 1, where we're figuring out what our ultimate cash requirement is. If we're able to take less out as owners draw or owner pay, we're able to keep more cash flow in there. So we need to cover less cash when our income, if and when our income decreases or disappears. Next thing I want you to do is explore grants. You guys, grants are free money. Last week on March 17th, Facebook announced that they're giving away $100 million in grants to small businesses. I'm confident other companies are going to follow suit, but you have to get out there and find them and apply for them. Okay, and a little goes a long way. Okay, even a couple, even if you could only get a couple thousand here, a couple, a little bit there, it's all going to help in your bottom line when it comes to your cash flow gaps, filling your cash flow gaps. Next thing I want you to do is delay or renegotiate your fixed costs, or at least try. So what I mean by this is contact your banks and see if they will give you a month or two for making your loan payments. Okay, this also works on the personal side if you have a mortgage or a car payment. I want you to contact your landlord and see if they can work with you on rent. As you're going through these steps, though, you guys, same with credit cards. So loans, credit cards, rent. As you're reaching out and seeing who will be able to work with you, I do want you to keep in mind that you're not technically cutting your overall costs, you're just delaying them. Okay, so the money will still eventually be due, and in addition, this delay could also come with additional accrued interest to be paid down the road. So that is why this is not, this suggestion of delaying and renegotiating fixed costs didn't fall into cutting expenses, because technically you're not cutting expenses, you're delaying them. But in the immediate future, for the next 3 months, when we're going through this pandemic, it's going to help you with cash flow if you are able to do these things. And then as a very last resort, I advise you at very last resort, you guys, I'm hesitant to say this because I want you to only come to this step if you've gone through all of your other steps and you still are short on cash, is to fund your cash flow with low interest debt. I'm not talking credit cards or high interest lines of credit. I'm talking low interest loans. So the SBA, the Small Business Association, has come out with Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, an Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. So SBA is working with all of the state governors to provide targeted low interest loans to small businesses and nonprofits who have been severely impacted by COVID-19. This program is going to provide small businesses with working capital loans up to $2 million. And if this is an option, you guys, that you think you might even need to explore, meaning you've looked at all, you've done all the steps we just talked about and you're still short on cash, even if all of these things hold true, then start thinking now about how to utilize this loan capital into your business and projecting exactly what you're going to use it for, because that's part of the application process for these SBA emergency loans. You can also go to their website and get a list of all the documents that you can start gathering the documentation and the information, so that if this is the step you need to take, you're ready to go. So more info can be found at sba.gov/disaster, and I will find a way to put this in as a resource for you guys. In addition to these SBA loans, your bank, your business bank, may also offer some sort of low interest private loans as well. But I just want to say one more time that debt is the last resort. That's my last suggestion to you. That's the difference. If it's the difference between staying in business and not, and you've exhausted all of your other resources, all of the other steps, then debt is an option for some of us. All right, guys, thanks for joining me today. I really hope you find this helpful, and I hope to see you guys all on the other side of this thing.